Hi, everyone. I hope you can all hear me. Welcome to Get Shit Done Live. This is episode 1. We're really excited to get things kicked off and started. To just quickly introduce myself, so I'm Iba. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Optimal AI, and I've now been AI for over 10 years. And it feels like so much has changed in just the last 2 to 3 years. And what we want to do with this show is help you navigate this change and continue to get shit done as we humans work with agents as well as our robot counterparts. To just quickly set the stage for today, we kind of have an action-packed show. We're going to be going through just the latest news in agents, talking about OpenClaw, as well as even sharing just some of the news that really piqued our interest. We've actually been experimenting with OpenClaw quite a bit, so we're going to have the Git father come on stage a little bit shortly to kind of share his experience and what he's been experimenting with. After that, we're going to have Nitesh Donti from Maybern, as well as Jesse coming in from Growth Loop. And I think one of the things that's really exciting about today's show is we've been playing so much with agents recently, and even just seeing some of the capabilities we've been able to unlock, it's been incredible. And in fact, at Optimal, from day one, we decided to go all in on agents, and that's really how we built OptiBots, our little AI code review companions. And we'll talk a little bit more about them later on in the show. So to start off with, for those of you that are joining, as well as for those of you that registered on our Luma, Kitty Town Coffee. So these folks are awesome. They for every pack that is sold, they actually give to homeless kitties, and they feed them pretty much everywhere for every pack sold. I've already tried the blend. It's great. But for this episode, we picked the Albert blend. And so for some of you joining, you'll be lucky enough to receive this pack. It's a lucky draw. And so if you win, you should be receiving this little coffee segment. Now, for those of you joining us live, I would love to hear where you're joining from. So share in the comments in the chat. Okay, I'm seeing Spain. And so keep posting your countries, your cities. I would love to know where you folks are joining from today. And then we're hearing Toronto. All right, the 6 is in the house. Welcome, Jeremy. And so, folks, just FYI, this is a live show, but comments and chat are going to be continued and constantly running. LA, welcome, Marissa. Nice to see you. Guatemala, Geraldo, hello. And so just remember, and we have Ecuador here. Luigi, welcome. It's great to see you here. And so folks in the chat, feel free to ask your questions. So because we're going to be digging into OpenClaw, we're going to be digging into lots of questions because we're bringing operators onto the show too. Feel free to post your questions and comments. We want this to be as engaging as possible. You are part of the show. That's why we're live streaming it. And that's why it's not pre-recorded. Okay, now without further, Las Vegas. All right, City of Sin. Welcome, Michael. Okay, so folks, before we get started and kicked off, I would like to give a warm welcome to the Git father who's going to be joining us on stage. Hello,
Hi,
welcome.
folks.
Welcome, Sayed.
It's good to see you all. I just saw the different people logging in from different countries.
I know, it's pretty awesome to see, and that was on my side. I couldn't hear you, but I think everyone else can.
I think they can, yeah.
Yes, they can. Okay. And fun fact, Sayed called himself the Git Whisperer too. So yeah, welcome.
I got that nickname from like a former engineer a colleague that I worked with, and then I just stuck with it. I was like, that's genius. I'm going to keep the Git father. Picked up as a GitHub username as well. But yeah, I like it. I'm going to keep it. It's also a very unique username for all the platforms that I sign up on.
Okay, so Sayed, I know you've been experimenting a ton with the claw, and yeah. I think what's funny was we've been talking a lot about this. But just to kind of like set the stage. So yes, we did end up buying a Mac Mini, and initially I know we set it up on server. But let's talk about OpenClaw. So for those of you joining us today, OpenClaw is kind of this new phenomenon, right? Everybody's talking about it. Saying, why don't you introduce us first? What is OpenClaw, and why should we, engineering leaders, builders, care about it?
Yeah, I think the way to look at OpenClaw is the way the creator wanted it to be seen as. It is a personal assistant, and that's what you should look at it as. All the weird things that we're doing with it, I don't think the creator actually intended for us to do with it. Like, I mean, I use it a little bit for coding, for finding content. Actually, planning is the other one that I use it for. And for all of those use cases, I mean, it supports them, but really what it was built for was to be able for you to use it as a personal assistant. So you have your iMessage attached to it, your Signal, your WhatsApp, you have your family members sending you weird memes in there and it can like reply back. Like that's what he thought it was supposed to be used for. And when it first came out a couple of weeks ago, that is kind of what people were using it for until they realized that it had other powers. And then from there on, I mean, there's this really fun graphic I like to share. Let me share that. It's the who's that Pokemon, and it's really there's a mix of different open claws now that are out there that you can tap into. There's Nano Claw. There's a new one that I found this morning which is called Open Fang. And so that's why I made this little Who's That Pokemon? Because it's a mix of Open Claw and this new Rust framework that they have. So I'll share a bit about that too and how that differs. But yeah, it's really funny on how people have picked this up and then made somewhat better versions of it to be very application specific. Like OpenFang is like apparently really good at coding. I haven't tried it out, but they have the same concept. Attach it to some type of messaging system like Slack or WhatsApp or whatever you use, and then have it run agents in the background in like an isolated environment.
So, Sayed, what's been the thing that surprised you most about OpenClaw? And then let's dig into what are some of the use cases that, I know there's by the way, if you're joining from a startup company, kind of post in the comments. I know several of you folks are engineering leaders, but we'd love to hear where you're joining from. And then also, if you have questions about OpenClaw usage, we'd love to actually just hopefully we get some time, but we'd love to address just one question on OpenClaw for the Git father. So, Sayed, what's been one use case that's really surprised you? Let's see if
Yeah,
you're
I
sharing
actually have the
something.
architecture diagram in case engineers are interested in seeing what it actually looks like. But my three use cases have been for us to be able to solve like P3, P4 issues. So I have a cloned copy of our code base in a separate machine that it uses, and then it can go and fix some issues that it grabs from linear. So I have it doing that. And then in other cases, I actually have it looking at security alerts. So CVEs off of the open database. That's something I've been just testing out. It does that pretty well. One of the reasons it does that well is it uses the browser fairly well in a remote environment. And so I've had like a 80% hit rate for anything that requires browser use, which I've been surprised at. I mean, I've used Comet and a bunch of other ones. I've used the one from OpenAI as well when they first released it, and none of those were able to run anything on the browser properly. OpenClaw has been great. It opens up the links. It can read through all of that, synthesize that information. I have it hooked up to my Signal as well. So it actually sends me messages when it finds things. If I don't want that, it goes to Slack. So, I mean, the way that Peter figured out like messaging channels and how it should work has been genius. And then you can separate all the agents as well. So the other thing is, a lot of people don't know this, but your agents, when you create them in OpenClaw, they're actually separated. So they don't run under the same session. They run under separate sessions. So all the information that's enclosed in an agent is not shared across each other. So all of that information stays super safe. And one of the cool things that I also think they did really well was the use of the meter Atlas meter framework. I'm sharing that on screen right now. The Atlas matrix for basically thinking through the security and architecture. I did not know about this. I found this through the OpenClaw documentation. I know everyone tweets and talks about how it's not secure. It is actually very secure. Um, so it follows this framework, and I think it's pretty robust. They've covered a lot of different attack surfaces in here. It is still purposely built as a personal assistant, and there's no personal assistant that's going to be fully secure. Hence why I put it on a Mac Mini, and that's the most you'll get out of it in terms of security. But I'm going to stop rambling. There's a ton in here that I could talk about. But yeah, just wanted to share a couple of fun facts about OpenClaw.
Okay, so for those of us joining, and how do we get started with OpenClaw? Like, what is the best way to just kind of get started playing around with it? I know what's funny is these have already started being out of stock. One
Yeah.
topic, by the way, is we actually found Best Buy has some really good open box versions, so you can get them for like 20% off. But the prices of these is actually going up because of OpenClaw usage. So let's say you get your hands on a Mac Mini, or you spin up an
Mhm.
instance of OpenClaw, just for yourself. How should someone think about the best use cases or top use cases, or like how to use it? And then just to kind of answer the question I asked you earlier, I cannot, like, I think the thing that I've been so surprised by is just how effective OpenClaw is as an AI employee,
It
adding it
is.
inside
Yeah.
Slack, and just kind of seeing some of the use cases that we're getting closer and closer to this reality where agents and humans are working together, right? So yes, for the folks joining us today, how can they get started? Like, what's a good
There's
way
two
to get
ways to
started?
go about it. I, as an engineer, like to first figure out how it was built. And so one of the cool things that I did before I even started using OpenClaw was I looked at the underlying tech for the agents that they use. They use PyMono for it. So if you're an engineer and you're like super interested in how this thing actually works, PyMono is the underlying agent runtime. And so if you want to use OpenClaw, you want to understand how it works, use PyMono first for coding. It is a really great agent runtime. It actually is the underlying tech for OpenClaw. So I would say go there first, try it out. If you're just using it for coding, I mean, Pi is a great coding agent on its own. It's open source. But if you're not doing that, I think the best thing to do is to actually go to the OpenClaw website, follow the instructions. It's super easy to set up. Just make sure that you're doing it on a device that doesn't have a lot of your work on there, or any of your personal information. One of the things that OpenClaw's agents are able to do is run full bash commands on terminal, which means if you asked it for or coerced it into giving credentials or finding information, it can. You won't have much time to react when it does all of these things and it just gives them to you. So that's it's fairly easy to install, by the way. This I think Peter's done a great job of like the onboarding process. There's even a Mac app. There's a Chrome extension that gets hooked up as well. That's actually there on my screen. You can see this little thing over here. All of this just gets done. It's like a one click, it's a couple of clicks, but it gets you through. Like you don't really need to be super technical to get this running.
Okay, says we have
So,
time for one question, and
yeah.
here's the question, and it's a really good one. Have you tried Claude Cowork? How do you think OpenClaw compares to that? I'll answer it first, and then say I think I'll
I
push
think
you.
you're a more avid user of
Yeah,
Claude
I think
Cowork.
I'll answer that one. So I've actually been a bit surprised by Claude Cowork. I've been experimenting with it for the last 2 weeks. I'm actually attending a session today as well at the Anthropic office for Claude Cowork GTM. And I think if you get your file trees right, you get your documentation right. I think that's something I'm still experimenting with. Stay tuned. I might have an update in episode 2, but for now, what I'm seeing in terms of differences is like with Claude Cowork, you already have the integrations are already present. They have a full marketplace of apps. You can basically, so one of my use cases for Claude Cowork actually was sales calls. So whenever I'm in calls, one of the things I wanted Claude Cowork to do was to take the sales transcript, push the transcript into an email so that every person that anyone on our team talks to automatically gets a follow-up email. And it did it, but there was quite a bit of prompting still required. The way I look at OpenClaw is that it's obviously much, much more customizable, right? Because it's open source And then I see it as the frontier of basically creating your AI employees, right? Because they can be inside Slack, they can run research on their own. And by the way, who is that Pokemon?
It's a mix of open fang and a lobster, but
Oh my God.
yeah,
Okay. All right. So you
I
created
made
your
it.
own
It's my
Pokemon.
Pokemon. Don't.
Okay. But
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, this is a really good slide, Say. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's where I was going to defend OpenClaw as an engineer, as like, okay, well, great, Cloud Cowork does that. The cool thing about OpenClaw is actually the infinite memory that it has. It's like these JSON-L files that are in there and all the session management. I I really like the way it does all of this in the back end. It takes care of all of these things that you would do, like if you asked it to, let's say, if I was giving an example, like write a follow up email. I can have in a folder with like all of my older emails that I might have sent, where it can be like, this is the tone that you need to use. These are like kind of the key points that you need to mention in follow up emails. You can store all of that information and have it access it, and it gets better over time because it stores all of the context and sessions in there, and that's infinite. When I say infinite, because it's on your machine, it just has a lot more space to do this and fetch that information when it needs to. So that's one thing that I've seen that it's good at, like long running tasks. Like follow-ups are not something you do one and done. You're probably doing them, throughout the month, the year, and it has all of that information in one place. I think I'm pretty sure Anthropic doesn't store that much of your data.
All right. Thank you, Sayed. And thank you for the questions, folks. So moving on, I actually just wanted to give a quick intro to Optimal AI, who's actually making all of this possible in terms of having this live show. So Sayed and I are both serial founders. We've been working on, AI for a while now. And we actually ran our last org for just over 9 years. And in the last year, exited and started Optimal AI, which is our newest venture. And so at Optimal AI, what we're working on are OptiBots. They are these thoughtful code review agents. They work with full code-based context, and they help you find security vulnerabilities, as well as consistently finding issues that you don't necessarily have to look for in the QA process. So they're looking for them at code review. And oh God, we've learned so much in the last year building agents. We went agent first. I actually think going AI native is probably a little outdated now, and going agent native is how companies should be thinking about this. But I think OptiBot wants to say a couple of words. So I'm going to let OptiBot do the talking now.
I got this. What?
That was awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Gitfather, and thank you, OptiBot. And now I think one of the things we've been most excited about with this show has been getting guests on and getting operators that are live in the field, building for AI native and our agent native reality, as well as our future. And so I am so hyped to bring on our next guest. And so Nitesh Donti is joining us in a couple of seconds. He is the Director of Engineering at Maybern, and he is here to talk to us about the first 30 to 90 days of ramping in an AI native org. Nitesh, welcome to Git Sh Done.
Hey, how are you?
Great to have you, Nitesh. And I know when you first joined Maybern, and just over the last couple of months as you've been ramping, I believe it was your 70-day mark when we last chatted. But I would love to know, and I'm sure the audience would love to know as well, Tell us, what has it been like joining an AI native org, and what have your first 30 to 70 days look like?
It's been great. I mean, anyone who's coding right now can tell you that these past 2 months have been the greatest inflection point that we've seen in agentic coding, and that timed up right with when I started at Maybern. Even just coming back from the winter holidays, going straight into Claude Code, having everyone experiment and try everything has really just been quite an experience. And I think there's no greater way to do that than be at an early stage or growth stage company where everyone has kind of the free will and the buy-in to try things out and really really kind of push.
So, Nitesh, you're 70 to 80 days in. What do you think really matters in the first 30 days?
Yeah, absolutely. I love reading all the leadership books. I've read plenty of them, all the blogs, etc., and they all have good advice, but none of it really matters when you actually get in and do the job. So a lot of things do stay the same in terms of onboarding in that first month, and it's really, can you understand what the leadership is looking for, what the state of the company is, and where there are the biggest areas for you to have leverage? So a lot of times in those first 30 days, it's really, can I understand how the different orgs work together, what types of founders there are, what the culture is like, and then oftentimes looking for areas where there are decisions that could be made.
So, what surprised you about Maybern being AI native, or what were some surprises that happened in those first 30 days?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the biggest surprise for me is having two co-founders who are software engineers and who are the biggest evangelists of agentic coding right now. So a few things is just trying things as soon as they're announced. A lot of us are on X quite often, but just seeing, whether it was OpenClaw or agent teams or things that are just being announced every single week. It's been amazing to see how quickly we try that out internally, evangelize it, and kind of share learnings across the company.
So, Nitesh, I think one of the things that happens within AI, and especially having founders that are really active on the agent side, I know I'm guilty of this, is
Yeah.
how do you ramp without getting distracted, right? Because distraction is something that happens quite a bit. How do you make sure that, when your CEO or your CTO is saying, hey, have you tried this or have you tried that? And I've been guilty of it. I remember in my last org, I had just over 80 engineers reporting to me, and I was very, very guilty of saying things like, "Hey guys, maybe we should try this." And it's pretty funny. Even so, yesterday I was at a dinner. We had organized one with multiple engineering leaders, and one of the folks that was here was like, "Oh, I feel like our CEO has been saying, I vibe coded this. Can you add it
Mhm.
into production?" And I felt that was pretty relevant. So it's like, how do you operate without getting distracted?
Yeah, I'll speak for me. I think it's probably different for everybody. I'll say I'm okay with having a little bit of FOMO, especially in these first few months. It's my first time in fintech, and there's so much product to understand. So you could, if you've been here for a while, use all these tools to have, multiple repos set up and multiple agents going on and working on so many tickets. But for me, it's really thinking about, can I go step by step with the different steps of Cloud Code, for example, understand, what tests are failing, why, what are these dependencies, what happens when I'm rebasing, what else has gotten into the system, et cetera. So there is FOMO that I'm not, moving as fast as some of the folks who've worked here and have all the context. But if I want to get that context, it is going to be moving a bit more slowly. And I'm just okay with that.
I actually really like the intentionality behind that, right? Because I think one of the things that happens about moving at agent speed or AI speed is that you can feel like you're falling behind. And I really like what you said about that intentionality, about almost intentionally moving slowly. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really different across the company in terms of, whether there's new hires or new grads and how they want to learn, whether it is using Claude Code and not really opening up an IDE, whether it's like still sticking on cursor, whether it's having these, whiteboarding sessions with people or driving into our internal docs. So everyone learns differently. I don't think that's going to change in humanity. So each person, just us being able to trust folks to use tools at whatever speed they want for the ramp up that they're looking for.
And it's I think like one of the things I'm curious about is, as you think about and we get this question a lot too, by the way. Nitesh, I'm sure you've had your ramp, as you've moved up the ranks. starting as an IC, moving up to manager, moving up to director. We get this question a ton. And what has your career journey looked like as you've kind of moved up the level? And then what has changed for you as you've gone from manager to director or even IC to manager?
Yeah, so I spent my first 8 years of my career as a software engineer IC, 3 years at LinkedIn and 5 years at Google, YouTube as a senior engineer. And then I made the jump into management and startups at the same time. So my first manager job was at Neuro, which is a self-driving car company. Um, and it's very different. I think if you are moving into management where you're managing a team directly of like 5, 6, 7, then there you're really driving product strategy, understanding, hey, what are some problems or inefficiencies across the org or across teams, and then hiring. So I always tell folks that the job of a true engineering manager versus a software engineer is very, very different. Of course, you need all the technical abilities and technical kind of mindset, but the day-to-day is so different. And the problems that you're solving are quite different. So especially if you're in that between IC and EM, it could look a little bit fuzzy, but ideally as you kind of make that journey, it's really about how can I set up my team for the most success, whether that is through hiring or especially through driving product and then driving decisions across the team, across the org. And that looks very different at a 100-person company versus 500 or 50,000.
And Nitesh, I'm curious, like, what does documentation look like? Has documentation played a role for you on the ramp side? Kind of curious where, what the importance of documentation is. And, you know, because I know a lot of directors love to run by their playbooks. And so, like, what's your reaction to that?
Yeah, documentation internally, like for our product engineering.
Really, it could be documentation of any form. It could be technical documentation, internal documentation, or even just kind of understanding the play-by-play of what's going on, right? Like as you ramp. And
Yeah.
so how much do you rely on documentation, for example, too?
I'm relying on it a bit right now. We have a kind of textbook that we've written at Maybern, which has all the fund accounting principles and entities, et cetera, for us to ramp up on, hey, what are we building out here? What does fund accounting look like? But also we've been using Mintlify and have a lot of documentation that we're generating through code changes, through AI, et cetera. And that's been especially useful for me to dig into either parts of the product or engineering and understanding what does the code base look like? What does our CI/CD look like? What does the specific product fund accounting domain item look like? But bigger than that, we were thinking, how do we build documentation, not just for us, but especially for agents? If we can build in the most context for our extremely complex, like financial accounting entities, then we have the most faith in the agents, like being able to grab all that complex context and run with it. So what started as helpful for us has very, very quickly evolved to how can we build out the best documentation, whether that's AI generated or by people, but with agents in mind.
Awesome. And folks, feel free to drop in your questions in the comments. We're going to be addressing those in just about 2 minutes. So Nitesh, talking about ramping and, and also even like as you were deciding whether or not to join Maybern, like as you were kind of in that in-between period, what was important to you when you decided to make your next career move? A lot of people, wonder like, should I be joining an AI? What should I look for when I'm joining an AI native org, for example? So I'm kind of curious as to what were your criteria for your next employer?
Yeah. When I was deciding for this role, this was before the past 2 months, which I think so much has happened in agentic coding and being AI native. But what was important for me was the size of the company that I wanted. I wanted to have some risk and start a little bit early. And then especially in my role, it's really deciding, is this company going to be able to use a senior leader, especially if you get to seed or series A, maybe it doesn't make sense. But at some point it does start to make sense. So that's really a big factor for me. Like, could I see myself adding a lot of value in this role? And does the company need me at this time? Secondly, I wanted to just be in office, like working here in Lower Manhattan in New York City, 5 days a week has just been so fun. So much of the heads down coding time is written by agents right now. So now what we're doing is figuring out how to build the best product. And that still requires, just like always, in-person collaboration makes it the most easy. So I've really enjoyed that. That's been a big factor for me too.
Oh my God. Yeah, now I really want to say live from Nitesh Donti.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, no, but awesome. And Nitesh, as you look to your next, so we talked about your first 30 to 90 days. as you look to your next, 6 months, as you look to your next 9 months, or like the year ahead, what's exciting you? Where are you looking to delve deeper? Just generally, like, what do you think would allow yourself to call it? Yes, I've had a really successful first year at Maybern.
Yeah, well, I'm always excited about hiring. We are hiring a ton, so that's going to be a big driver for the company and where I spend a lot of my time right now. So that's one thing. Secondly, is just watching everyone grow. We have a lot of really great talent here, both at the IC level and at the manager level. So it'd be really successful if I can see people, with their new teams growing a lot, when we have new hires, onboarding them well, and just seeing people be successful. And then the last part for success is we are working with a lot of high profile customers, and to implement funds takes a lot of deep collaboration across engineering, product design, and our client onboarding teams. So really making that a smooth running ship would be amazing success.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so we're getting quite a few questions, so I think we're gonna dig into the questions.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, if we're ready. Okay. All right, let's start with, so Lila Brooks. Okay, so Lila actually, I think Lila's pretty much presenting a case study here. So different engineers on the team at different, and I love this. Thank you, Lila. It's like you're getting right into the meat of things. It's awesome. So we have different engineers on the team at different levels of skills and knowledge, and being comfortable leveraging AI in their day-to-day. We have goals set from leadership to show how leveraging AI has helped the team as a whole. Learning curve, adoption will be different for different people on the team. Have you had a similar situation? And if so, how did you go about it?
Very similar. And I think just like with learning anything else, it's going to be different for each person. Sometimes it is truly having someone next to you and setting something up for you and walking you through the process. A lot of times it's, just we have a Claude Code channel on Slack where we're just sharing winnings, Loom videos, et cetera, like learnings. So having that evangelized and socialized across the company for individual use cases or individual technologies is really important as well. I think it's similar everywhere. The best way to set people up for success is to have all the information out there, have people be talking about it, and kind of showing off their work and what's been working, and then also giving people the tools and the time to go explore. I think it's similar everywhere. So hopefully that's a good way to get success.
Folks are already starting to also like some of the questions. So I think we're starting to get also some push on you should ask this one. Okay, cool. Let's move on to the next one then. Myra's asking, how is your definition of good code changed now that agents are doing the heavy lifting?
Me personally, not at all. The definition of good code should be exactly the same. Luckily, a lot of reviews are coming in from CodeRabbit or other tools that we're using to make code review easier, but the code that actually gets in our code base should be the same. Of course, in some areas it's a little bit harder. I know, on the front end side, sometimes we get in quality code that's not up to the quality bar sometimes, and that'll require us going back and kind of figuring that out. But in general, hasn't changed at all. We want code to be readable. Ideally, we want folks pushing code who can vouch for the code and who understands every single line going in. So my definition has not changed at all.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a really good one. Thank you. Okay, so Michael Jabara is asking, which coding agents do you prefer for which roles? We like Claude Code, Opus 4.6 coding, and we love Codex via MCP for code review.
Yeah, so far I've just been on Claude Code. I haven't been doing nearly as much as some of the software engineers here, so I probably can't opine on all the differences just yet.
Awesome. All right. And then finally, we have one more question. Do you have someone in the team working on internal performance, searching for new tools and working on a development process, or is everyone free and responsible to find their own AI journey?
Yeah, I'd say more of the latter. Luckily, I think we have enough people here who are not responsible for it, but super excited by it and have real problems that they want to solve that they think that AI can help them with. So if we got to the point where that wasn't happening here, then we might have to assign, champions or make more of a structured process. And that could work too, but luckily here, we just haven't had to have any of that. If there's enough people here who are trying it, kind of doing the things that you should be doing, then you got lucky and your engineering org is better off for it.
Awesome. Well, Nitesh, would you like to plug in that I know Maybern's hiring, and what roles are you folks hiring for?
Yeah, Maybern's hiring all over. I'm hiring for software engineers, particularly product engineers. So we're building a fund management platform for the office of the CEO, making private fund accounting, strategy, et cetera, just much easier for everyone. And we have a lot of great product to build. So hiring for product engineers across all levels. And we have a bunch of other roles open as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Nitesh. And before we have you leave, can you just give us a very quick blurb on what Maybern does?
Yes, we are building the operating system for modern fund finance. That's what
That's
we're doing.
that's a really good one. I love that. That was more like 30 seconds. That was a good white pitch. Awesome. Nitesh, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. Unfortunately, we didn't get to go through all of the questions that are coming in. They're still kind of coming in, but hopefully we'll get to spend more time together on a future episode. But thank you, Nitesh, for bringing all of your wisdom today and helping folks get shit done.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Nitesh. All right. Well, folks, we are moving on. So, so much has been discussed. Said, what did you think? I love some of Nitesh's sound bites.
Yeah. This was really informational in terms of like what a director looks like in the age of AI, and that's shifted a lot. And I also like the fact that the team has enough autonomy to bring in tooling that works for them, and we've started to see a lot more of that, even with the dinners that we have, where engineering teams are being empowered to go bring in new tools, share them with their colleagues, and get adoption internally. So I think that's been a big shift, because before all the buying used to happen on the director level or the CTO level, like, oh, I like this tool, and you'd be like, go pitch it to the CTO, figure out if that's going to be a good fit. And now it's like more bottoms up. We saw that in some other tooling as well, like project management was one of them. But yeah, that's a big shift.
Yeah, and so folks, I think some of what Nitesh talked about actually got me thinking, and I wanted to quickly share something I saw just today. Let's see. Let me pull the right image. Yes, there we go. Okay. So I thought this was really interesting. So Akshay, he's one of the founders of Notion. And I think the thing that, one of the things that's been a pretty big discussion point recently is vibe coding, right? Like how many parts of software tool chain are you going to vibe code? But I thought that what I really liked about some of the points he was making is that you really need to be thinking about your product or your org at the agentic level. And the reason why I think this is really important, and actually why we decided to go back into the building arena and start Optimal, was because we were really curious, like, what does it look like to build an agent native company? And so I really liked what he put here is, and this is on his LinkedIn, by the way, so you can check out the post. It's getting a ton of traction. But really, I think the question of, does your software product, can it exist in the agentic ecosystem? Is it open, interoperable? Can it plug into the systems being built around it? I think this is all really important stuff because there are so many legacy software companies that are trying to wrap their head around agents and how all of this is going to play out in the ecosystem. And so, but the thing is, what you need to look at it as, like, in summary, if you're doing nothing, you are risking drifting. And I think that's what I thought was really relevant in this post. But this was just something that got me thinking today.
Yeah, I think if you're going to build a company today, you have to think of it. Someone posted this on X, and YC's motto was build something people want, and now they're like, that's been changing to build something agents want. And I think
Whoa.
and I was like, that makes a lot of sense. Like, you want to build something agents want, because now that's like the operational layer of information. If you think of it, right? Like Nitesh brought up documentation, and I was like, oh, yeah, you probably need, Mintlify does this actually. They have LLM.txt file for your documents. Like, they have this layer that is agent accessible. So it's a very interesting time to be living in and giving all these agents access to information freely.
Right.
So I think that's, yeah.
Thank you, Gitfather, for weighing in. And now it's time to introduce our next guest. We promised you an action-packed show, right? An action-packed episode 1. And so I am so honored to be introducing Jesse McInnes. He is the VP of Engineering at Growth Loop. And we've gotten to know each other recently. So Jesse, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Great to see you here, Jesse. And so I think, we've been chatting quite a bit about how your teams are playing with AI and how your engineers are finding that, they're just basically really excited about all of the changes that are happening, and they're feeling like they're in a playground. So talk to us about that. Like what does that look like? How do you give engineers, I don't know if you can even call it that, what, permission to play?
Yeah, I mean, the world is changing so fast, and it just keeps getting faster and faster. Uh, you know, so much change happens within a week. You kind of want to just play, and really, it's just been a matter of letting people have permission to go chase the things they want to chase, to be on the bleeding edge, to try new things. And I don't know how it doesn't end up as fun once you have this like suite of agents and orchestrators and different tactics at your hands.
So I think, one of the things about play is that also, how do you make it feel like play and not work, right? Like that, I mean, what happens, right? It's like, oh, the CEO said we have like, top-down mandate and we need to be playing with AI and, versus like, oh, hey, it's just a bunch of us in a basement, just kind of like hacking away and, trying to, the old days of Silicon Valley. Yeah. So anyway, how do you make it feel like fun, I guess, or more like work?
I mean, I think there's a bunch of different tacks, and I think you kind of have to do a little bit of all of them. And of course, it depends on the people you have. But what has worked well so far for us, play yourself. So like as a lead, as a person who's trying to push a message, you have to practice what you preach, and you have to practice it in a way that also shows you're having fun with it. You're doing some things that are silly. You're doing some things that are maybe wasteful. You're experimenting. That sets the stage to allow others to do the same. I think making spaces where people can also go a little bit closer in on fun. So we have, like many people at this point, we have our AI Singularity channel where people share the crazy stuff happening on the internet or from different corners, which always sparks different message threads, different ideas, different concepts. We have private channels that I've gotten different clusters of people in to give them safe space to play when that is what they're craving or looking for, where I might share something I tried, or I'll broadcast something that someone else did to promote it and encourage it and see what other people are trying to do. We've done gamification, which I think is, there could be some risk to this, but when we first started getting people pilled on AI, we went really hard on like AI leaderboards and promoting who was using the most tokens, and whoever was at the top, we would try and get a snip of, well, what were you doing? So was it just like useless spend, or like, did you do something neat? And so like, yeah, basically that. It's like, show the fun, have fun yourself, and keep inviting people in to try.
I love what you said about the pill. I feel like that just made me immediately think of the Matrix, and are we just are we being red pilled or blue pilled? I could.
Right.
All right. So kind of going back to experimentation. What do you think you've gotten, or just the teams have gotten really right at Growth Loop, and what would you like to see more of, or where do you think there could be improvement, especially as you get your teams experimenting and iterating?
Yeah, I mean, I think I also think this is true of most places. There's a gradient, so I want to get more people, I would say, further along in the gradient with some of the tools. So we've got folks in engineering and also folks not in engineering that are at like the extreme end. They're using open code or Claude code with like a whole bunch of orchestration to do a whole bunch of never-ending background things. You don't always need that for every task, but there's a lot of things that's really good at. So I would love to see more people, we'll say, get to that end of the spectrum. And of course, that edge of the spectrum is the thing that is changing every couple days, week over week. What is the best practice? What's the best trick? What we do well, though, I think, is people have leaned into trying. So we have people that were skeptical, right? They had a bad experience. The models, of course, got better, but there was like, they go to do it. Our code base isn't, there's some legacy stuff in there, and that trips up agents fast. And so you get burned a little bit. You try something that churns away for a long time. It doesn't do what you want, but people keep trying. They don't give up. They let it go, and they say, yeah, that one was a waste of tokens, and I'll just go do it by hand. Or this one worked really, really well. Let's figure out what I need to layer into the system to get more of these successes. But it's that mindset of try and try again, experiment, keep playing. And I do think people are doing increasingly leaning into the fun. Like I was jamming with my VP of HR last week about like vibe coding an app that she could run locally so that it would be low risk for a bunch of like employee data wrangling because it's spread across a whole bunch of disparate systems and is its own hell to consolidate. And it's like, yeah, don't waste your time on that. Let's get you set up with a dev environment on your laptop. Let's get you set up with Cursor. And she leaned in, which I love. And that idea of wanting to be curious and play is something I think we're doing well. And I think is the thing that matters the most.
It's interesting you said about the just getting people to play around in dev environments, and I feel like one of the things that I've noticed is you can kind of see the gleam in people's eyes when you first introduce them to just the concept of like them creating something from scratch or creating their own app and seeing it come to life. And so I think like what I loved was your the token usage anecdote, but it's almost like giving folks permission to use up the tokens, right? Like just to use them. It's funny. I know one of the orgs I talked to recently, they actually have a token leaderboard where they're just kind of like looking at like, which of the engineers are using the most tokens. But, obviously that's that could be a double-edged sword because some engineers might be too junior. So they're just kind of racking up token spend because they have no idea, what they're prompting or how they're going about doing so. So what's kind of like is there a medium? Is there a good balance in between, like where it's like you want people to be using the tokens, but also you want them to like be a bit more thoughtful, right, about how they prompt?
Yep. I mean, I think this just comes down to you keeping curiosity too, right? That like I don't think there's a silver bullet here. You have to. So with our leaderboard, we don't do the leaderboard anymore. It did its job. It opened the door. It got people excited, and then we needed to get to a stage of like, yeah, let's still pay attention to where our power users so we can learn from them. Who's using a ton of tokens because they found a creative thing? Oh, where are we using tokens because like there's actually like this one trick that we thought was cool but was actually a bad idea that somehow propagated that we need to like teach people about. But yeah, to me, it's just when you roll something out, you have to stay curious about what it's telling you and pull the threads. And I think if you keep that same curiosity, that also, again, role models curiosity, learning. I'll be public when I try something that fails as well. I'll be like, hey, I went and like did this cool like background harnessy thing that ran for several hours and I burned a couple $100 in tokens and it spit out garbage. So maybe learn from my mistakes and spend more time at X or Y before you spin off something like this. And at the same time, I'll share a post from someone who did that successfully to be like, hey, one of our principal engineers rewrote all of our tests in mini test in the background, and it worked incredibly well and spent almost no tokens. And here's the tricks he did to make it work. Yeah.
And Jesse, I think we had talked about this earlier, right? Which was the secret Slack channels. When we were chatting that you alluded to that too, as you talked about specific channels where people are just kind of sharing sharing more of their AI stories. But okay, tell us about these secret Slack channels. How do they work? And what and it sounds like they encourage play.
Yeah, I mean they all have different flavors. So I have a couple here. I've had them at previous companies I've been at too, because I find particularly in the digital world, you lose that sense of small group that you can just, shoot the shit with, be honest, be a little bit more raw than you might want to be in a public channel with like 40, 50, 60 people. So when I got here, I have my council of chaos where I very expressly say the whole point of this is like honest, raw, chaotic chat. And it kind of has turned into a little bit of an AI play space. And people will sometimes post crazy things in there and I'll encourage them to go send those somewhere public if they're feeling comfortable with it. But it lets you have that first safe zone. I have another one that's kind of like counsel with some of the VPs. So I'm trying to do the same thing at the leadership level where, again, a safe corner to share detailed and like non-agentic work, but also to share cool experiments that you're trying or things that you're unsure about. Rinse and repeat a couple times. And it's like, it just makes these different zones of safety to play, to be honest, to not be afraid of judgment. And I think that also bolsters confidence for people, which then helps promote into posting in the public spaces too.
Oh, awesome. And okay, so it sounds like there's a serious culture of iteration and experimentation happening at Growth Loop. For those of us that are unfamiliar with Growth Loop, can you give us just a quick blurb on what Growth Loop does?
Yeah. The quick answer: composable data platform for marketers focused on, well, now with AI, compound marketing and agentic intelligence. So how can you keep everything composable, but get all the benefits of owning all your data in this context-heavy world?
Okay, so how do you avoid like 30 fragmented experiments? Like, how do you just avoid, multiple teams going off, running their experiments, but then, or multiple engineers, but then, it's I'm gonna show you the meme that I found that actually kind of like perfectly captures it. It's Pink Panther. He's just basically just like painting a wall pink, and then his friend is painting it blue. I'm gonna find it now, but
Yep.
how do you make sure that there aren't all these fragmented experiments that are running?
I mean, honest answer, don't worry about it. Like the world is changing so much right now. I would rather have 30 competing experiments because the opportunity cost of missing some of these things is so high that it's worth the like duplicated effort cost. Pair that with encouraging a culture of sharing and broadcasting so that if you are experimenting, hopefully we can see that it's happening, so that if there really is a genuine conflict, you can maybe help steer them together. And then in my mind, thoughtful rails. So again, pay attention to the people who are really pushing the needle. Those are the ones that maybe you engage a little bit more with, and you figure out what do you see as the future? What do you see as the best bet? And then I also have rails that I'm trying to lay of like, hey, we have this repo in the corner of Gaia. There was a great blog post a while ago about like mono repos and how they're turning into a richer thing than what they've conventionally been. I'm not stopping people from spinning up other context stores, but that gives now a central home for where you might dump certain kinds of activities. So yeah, to me, it's like, honestly, just let the experiments collide, but encourage people to share.
Exactly. So don't worry about this.
Yeah, honestly, don't worry about it. And yeah, there's limits. There's always limits, but this is it's risk reward. How much are you going to spend preventing this? How much is that going to cost you in discovering something better?
Yeah, exactly. And so even if, people are just kind of like painting over their work, or there's just constantly, iteration happening, don't worry too much about. I love that. It's a really cool contrarian take. So I think, the other piece, Jesse, is, and there's lots of questions coming in. So just folks, feel free to post your questions in the chat. We would love to address some of your questions. And I know there's some new people that have just joined as well. Welcome to the show, but please feel free to post your questions for Jesse. We're really talking about, how do you give engineers permission to iterate, experiment, play? So you actually already answered this, Jesse, earlier, but and I thought, the example of your head of HR experimenting was a really thoughtful one. But how do you bring non-engineering teams along? I think we talked about this. I remember in our earlier conversation too, right? You're like, hey, engineers, I feel like there's already rapid iteration happening, but what about the non-engineers? Like, how do we get the non-technical teams to like really experiment and play and iterate?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's the same tricks. I think for me, where I'm starting though is finding those people who are showing interest and excitement, and then promoting, helping, making sure they're not blocked. I will spend lots of my time with someone who wants to pair, who's never written code before, because that is worth it. That is worth my time to unlock them and then let them become an advocate or an example that people can look to. I think of our head of ops, like RevOps. He discovered he had known about Claude Code. I gave him a link to a course that had come out that I think made its rounds on Twitter that is like for PMs, but it's a really easy to get into course with good positioning that you do literally in Claude Code itself. Shared that with him before he went on Christmas break. He was chatting with a buddy who had made an app, and he was like, oh my God, maybe I can make an app. And so he was already like, had a friend nearby. He had this course. And then when he came back from the break, he was just like mind blown. I need the world to see. And I've been supporting him as he keeps exploring. It's the same with VP of HR. We have someone else in go-to-market who's looking at ways to build their own Slack bot that can do a whole bunch of random toilful shit for them. All of these, to me, is just leaning in and again, giving permission. Yep, spend tokens. Don't worry about it. It's okay if it breaks. The worst thing that will happen is that like the Slack bot won't respond. Try with this tool. If you're worried, if you hit a wall, just reach out, just book time with me, and then staying available, staying encouraging. And again, trying to find ways to make it fun. So it's like, it doesn't have to always be work too. Like, do you want to just build something that you find entertaining? Let me know and I'll come play. I'll come play.
I love that example, Jesse. And I know we only have time for one question, folks, unfortunately. So we're going to take the one that we just picked. This is a really good one. How do you give engineers permission to play without letting the roadmap fall apart?
Yep, that's fair. I think I'm a deep believer that even in tight roadmaps, everyone should have like their own side quests. And like side quests isn't always the right word, but like have something that you were personally passionate about. Your job is to make sure you do your work. But our job as leads into systems is to make sure that there is flex in the system. So there you might have spirits or sprints, moments where you're 90, 95% tilted to roadmap and 5% with that piece of play. And you'll have moments inevitably where that person has a little bit more slack and they can chase that thing they're interested in. And I find those moments of play, those special projects, those things that people are personally passionate about lend really well to AI because they're so time constrained. There's no way to make progress without it, which becomes a really incredible unlock. And then once people are using it, your capacity is just going up, right? Like you're waiting on agents. Like your time is now spent waiting for these digital workers to do your job. So while you have this running, you might as well get 2 or 3 other things running in the background at the same time.
Awesome. Thank you, Jesse. That was really insightful. I love the pill analogy, and I feel like we're all pilled at this point. So thank you so much for being on the show. And folks, if you have more questions for Jesse or Nitesh, feel free to shoot them over as well. We will always send them over async because I know there's so many questions coming in. We just can't get to all of them. Just don't have enough time. But thank you so much, Jesse. And any plugs that you want to share for Growth Loop while you're here?
If you're a principal eng who wants to build agentic, come find me.
Awesome. Thanks, Jesse. We'll see you on the other side.
Ciao.
All right. Well, folks, I think, I am really curious about what the Git father thinks about all of this too. But Jesse, thank you. That was really, really insightful. And I'm seeing some claws coming into the chat too. That people are just talking about like, okay, yeah, they're experimenting with Claw, what that looks like, and OpenClaw. I think, Said, one of the things I thought was really interesting was when we first set about building OptiBot, and there's a series of OptiBots that exist today, right? Like there's not only a code review agent. It's the reason it's thoughtful is because it's thinking, right? Before it gives a review within a PR. So walk me through, and I think, this is especially, based on some of the things we've been hearing quite a bit. Walk me through like why and how, and how that thought process came about. Especially since I know OptiBot has even now started finding dead code, right? In its code reviews. Since with AI, we're also seeing just fundamentally PRs are getting larger, and there might be a lot of just fluff in code. So how does OptiBot think as it makes some of these reviews and decisions?
Yeah, that's a great question. I believe a year ago when we started out, there were code review tools that were doing it. I think a lot of them were just taking a patch file and the changes you made and dumped it in an LLM, and they were like, here, what's wrong with this piece of code? And we fundamentally disagreed on that. We were like, that's not a code review. It's too flat, and that's not really how you review code. And so what's the best way to review code like a human? And so we went through that format, which was, you need to be looking at this code from a couple of different perspectives. One is that line by line code review where you're like, okay, does this definition, this function make sense? And the second part is like, in the grand scheme of your code base, like, how will this affect my production level infrastructure, business logic? Like those are the things you care about when you review your code as a principal engineer, for example. And so we were like, how do we empower this to do that? And that needs to go through an agentic process. And so we went through building agent loops to look out for those things like security, performance too. Dead code was something new we did recently, and all of that is also powered by a code graph that we built out, which just makes it easier for the agents to grab the information they need quickly. If you've seen agents work on your local machine, they'll typically, grep through things. We do that too when necessary, but a lot of times we can just point it to the right place, like GPS, and be like, hey, that's where this function is. Or if you're looking for like the way Stripe works inside your code base, the agent has a tool and it can access all that information much faster. So we rely on both like normal compute, and we rely on using a lot of the capabilities of the frontier models themselves.
Yeah, and I think like what was really one of the things we did, I think, really well was we decided that we wanted OptiBot to think through its decisions, right, as it's posting the review. And that's really why we ask even our customers, just FYI, folks, if you're building agents, you want to ask your customers to evaluate your agent versus others. And we actually say this to all of our customers that, hey, if you're evaluating OptiBot, evaluate it against all of the other code review bots that are out there. Look at it, compare it to Claude Code Review, compare it to Cursor Bug Bot. And it was consistently that they were finding that it was because of the code base context piece, it was because of the way it thinks and processes information, and just the level of the review in terms of the actual code review, because we're trying to get to human quality review. That's really our goal. And so we saw that there was really like a big difference from an approach perspective versus just kind of tacking on an LLM to the review. And it makes a huge difference, right? Because there's so many other things we were able to do. We could even have the agents run test cases, like a version of OptiBot that can run test cases, or spin up the code in a sandbox environment so that it can properly test and evaluate, like, oh, is this running? So that's one of the things that excites us about building every day. And why, I feel like we've been pilled on the agent side is because I think even the capabilities have been surprising us. And we've even seen, like, just the level of catches that OptiBot is able to do as it's, understanding your code base without storing your code.
Yeah.
It's just getting better in quality in terms of the catches.
Yeah.
And I think
we trust Claude Code to do a lot of the work, but there's always gaps even within its capabilities that we've ourselves been shocked in finding. Like OptiBot looks at things and it's like, well, that thing doesn't make sense. So it's been really fun to see it catch things that I would typically look at. Whether it's like a couple of days ago, something like with message buffer sizes, but I was lazy and so was Claude Code, and it was like, I'm not going to change these tests. And then OptiBot was like, hey, you probably want to change those tests, because when you start testing with JSON sizes between 5 and 25 MB, this is going to fail. I was like, yeah. Purposely I was lazy about it, but they just mentioned it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go update these, because that perspective made a lot of sense. Like, yeah, I will probably test this later and it's going to break, so I might as well fix it now. So it's like things like that got brought up a lot that we appreciate.
This is a version of OptiBot dressed as the alien from Toy Story, because OptiBot's getting killed too. It's also.
Here's a question for you. It has one monocle and it has 3 eyes. So does it have eyesight problems in one of it?
I don't know. Like, okay, so OptiBot has a monocle, right? And it was funny because someone actually in the chat also said, hey, that video was really cool. And I remember when we were designing its look, it has 2 eyes and 1 monocle, right? So it makes sense that only
that makes sense. Now
I think only 1 eye is nearsighted. That's how you should see it. Okay, so only 1 eye is nearsighted. And then, oh my God, I've actually
it's like an iPhone camera. It's got like 3 different zoom lenses.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I think that's the way to look at it. Well, folks, we had so much fun with you, spending time trying to talk all things get shit done. I feel like we're obviously navigating a new reality, but our goal with these episodes is to power you, right? Like to fuel you, and of course, I wanted to bring up Kitty Town Coffee again. They're not a sponsor, by the way. I just love their coffee, and I just love the fact that they feed homeless cats. But I know, oh my God, I'm getting comments. I'm like, why would a robot be excited? Oh my God, that's actually true. Like, what? Okay, yeah, I don't know, but yeah, it's just, listen, okay, it needs the monocle. It's more fashion. It looks cool, and yeah, and sometimes robots can be nearsighted. It is what it is. Although I know Wally isn't. Like, just.
Dan just said he had a cup this morning, so.
Dan, thank you. Yes, okay, I'm glad you had a cup this morning. Hopefully the beans tasted good. Well, yeah, this was a blend. So this was for this episode we had the Albert blend, but just FYI, next episode. Okay, let's talk about our next episode. So our next episode is already slated for recording, and we're gonna post a link into the chat. And in our next episode, we're going to feature Nick from Uniswap. And I noticed Nick was also in the comments today. So Nick, thanks for joining. And we're going to have you on the next episode. And so if you'd like to register for the next episode, make sure you register for the Luma link. because it's from the Luma link entries that we actually pick the winners for the coffee as well. And remember, like every coffee bot feeds kitties, which is really nice too. So we just posted the link. Just register on the Luma link so that you can actually get access to the next episode as well. And I know for this one, we had over 100 of you register. And so we're really excited for you to register for the next one as well. Wow, I'm already actually seeing registrations coming in for the next one. Thank you, folks. That's so, so cool. Really, really cool to see that. So yes, grab your spot for the next one because we're going to be taking your questions. And then we're also going to be sending some of you coffee because that's the idea, right? We're getting shit done with fuel. Okay, folks, that's a wrap on our episode. Thank you so much. And of course, as you know, OptiBot is available to join your teams. So if you are overwhelmed with code reviews, if you're seeing a ton of AI fluff coming into your code, maintainability is becoming a problem, security vulnerabilities, give OptiBot a try. So all you need to do is head on over to getoptimal.ai. And so getoptimal.ai, just right there, it's in the link below. You can try OptiBot for free. And especially for the people that attend, we give you extra special things during the trial. So we actually give you unlimited tokens. You get to chat with OptiBot as much as possible about your full code base. And you're able to run unlimited reviews without having to worry about tokens, because token spend is a problem today, right? So you can try OptiBot for free on getoptimal.ai. And here's what's cool. We are in the trials, as in we're helping you. Like we're looking at the outputs. We're constantly talking to you on Slack. We actually have a secret Slack channel with you as well. So definitely take a look at getoptimal.ai in order for you to start your code reviews. We already have over 2,000 engineers using us and helping with their code reviews. And we're live on GitHub, GitLab. We also have a VS Code extension as well as a Cursor one. Thank you, folks. Thank you so much for joining. Just FYI, we are also taking in your questions and suggestions for the next topics you'd like us to cover. So we actually took topic suggestions for this one, and OpenClaw was the most overwhelming one. But if there's anything you'd like us to dig into further, feel free to ping us. So I'm on X. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn as well. We'll post some of our links to our LinkedIn and X too, and our socials. But feel free to ping us on our socials just to kind of ask us about topics that you would love for us to cover in our next episode. We're still tinkering with topics, but also AI is moving so quickly that sometimes we have to like come up with the topic like a couple of days before. But we're really excited about our next one, and make sure that you follow us on our Luma. And then we'll also my LinkedIn just got posted on that link too. So feel free to ping me there. I don't sleep, so I'm always available, and I'm happy to talk about whatever topics you'd like to see in our next episode. And then the Git Fathers LinkedIn just got posted as well. Okay, so that was us, the co-founders of Optimal AI, and just talking about how we're building things, as well as bringing on guests and operators. Thank you so much for an incredible first episode, and we're so excited to see you in the next one. All right, cheers, and I think we will let OptiBot do the outro with our rap song. So if you haven't heard this before, this is our OptiBot rap song. OptiBot, take it away.
Scalpel to the stack, turning messy code into a polished track. Zeros and ones, it's the rhythm of the grind. OptiBot flows with a powerful mind. Blueprints analyzed, every flaw aligned. It's the future of code, leaving doubt behind. Loops get tightened, functions redefined. Every keystroke checked, nothing misaligned. Debugging beats, Opti drops the bass. In this code jungle, it's setting the pace. OptiBot spitting truth in the digital stream, flipping through the code like a hacker's dream. Lines refined, it's a pristine scene. Future of the craft, you know what I mean. You know what I mean.